I didn't come to the city looking for anything permanent. That was the lie I told myself. The truth was simpler. Staying in one place too long made me restless. It made people ask questions I didn't want to answer. So I moved when things started to feel real. New city, short contract, temporary apartment. I liked knowing exactly when something would end. That night, I went out because my apartment felt too quiet. Not lonely, just heavy. The bar wasn't loud. It wasn't crowded either. Just dim lights, low music, and people pretending they weren't watching each other. I sat alone at first. That's when he stopped in front of me. "Is this seat taken?" His voice was calm, not rehearsed. He wasn't trying to impress me. I looked up. "No." He sat down, close enough that I could feel his presence, but not close enough to assume anything. We introduced ourselves. His name was Marco. He smiled easily, but his eyes were careful, like someone who had learned not to expect too much. We talked about simple things at first. Work, the city. Why do people end up places they didn't plan to stay? "I'm only here for a while," I said. Something flickered across his face. Not disappointment. Understanding. "Temporary can be safer," he said. That should have been my warning. The conversation flowed too naturally. No awkward pauses. No forced jokes. Every time our eyes met, something warm settled in my chest. I felt it and I pulled back. "I should be honest," I said quietly. He tilted his head. "So should I. I'm not looking for anything serious." He didn't hesitate. "Neither am I." Relief washed through both of us. That's when we said it out loud. "One night," he said. "No expectations," I added. "No future," he finished. We smiled, almost laughing at ourselves. Felt mature, responsible, like we were protecting something fragile. When we stepped outside together, the night air felt cooler. We walked slowly, close enough that our arms brushed once. Neither of us apologized. Inside his place, everything felt quiet, intentional. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. "This doesn't have to mean anything," he said. "I know," I replied, but my heart was already betraying me. When he leaned in, he hesitated just for a second, giving me time. I closed the distance. The first kiss was gentle, careful, like we were testing the rule we'd just made. Then it deepened, not rushed, not desperate. His hand found my waist, warm and steady. Mine rested against his chest, feeling his heartbeat speed up under my palm. We pulled back slightly, breathing unevenly. "This is still one night," he said softly. I nodded. "Yes." But when we kissed again, it didn't feel temporary. Felt intentional. That was the problem. Later, lying beside him in the quiet, reality crept back in. I watched the way his breathing slowed, the way his fingers rested loosely against mine. This was the part one usually avoided. Connection after closeness. I slipped out of bed before morning. Not because I didn't want to stay, because staying made things harder to deny. At the door, I paused. Marco was awake, watching me. No disappointment, no accusation. "Goodbye," he said. "Goodbye," I replied, and I meant it. Walking back to my apartment, I told myself the rule had worked. No promises broken, no expectations created. Just one night. But something about the city already felt different, like I had left something behind, or worse, like I was going to see him again. I told myself I wouldn't think about him. That was the plan. I woke up early, showered longer than usual, and left my apartment with one clear goal: erase the night before it turned into something else. Should have been easy. I'd done this before. One night, no attachment, move on. But the city felt louder that morning. Every sound is sharper. Every moment heavier. I caught myself replaying small details I hadn't meant to remember. The way Marco's voice softened when he said my name. The way he hesitated before that first kiss, like he was asking permission without words. The way his hand stayed on my waist just a second longer than necessary. I shook my head as I walked. "Stop," I told myself. "It's over." Work helped for a while. Meetings, emails, distractions. But even there, my focus slipped. I kept thinking about how easily I'd left, how practiced I was at goodbyes. Around noon, I stepped out to grab coffee. The cafe was crowded. I almost turned around, and then I saw him. Marco stood near the counter, sleeves rolled up, phone in his hand. Casual, familiar, like he belonged in my day now. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he looked up. Our eyes met. The surprise on his face was real. So was the smile that followed. "Hey," he said. My chest tightened. "Hey," that was it. One word each. And suddenly the rule felt fragile. We stood there awkwardly, like strangers pretending not to know too much about each other. "Didn't expect to see you," he said. "Yeah, me neither." A pause. Not uncomfortable, just charged. "I was just grabbing coffee before work," he added, like he needed to explain his presence. "So was I." Another pause. He smiled again, softer this time. "Guess the city really is smaller than we think." I nodded. We took our coffees to go. Walked out together without discussing it. Outside, the daylight made everything feel more real than the night before. Less forgiving. We walked side by side, not touching, but aware of the space between us. "So," Marco said carefully, "how's the temporary life treating you?" "Still temporary," I replied. He glanced at me. "Still leaving?" "Yes." The answer came too fast. He looked away, nodded once. "Good," he said. "That's good." The word didn't sound convincing. We stopped at the corner where our paths split. This was where it should end. Again. "Well," he said, shifting his coffee cup from one hand to the other. "Nice seeing you." "You too." I should have walked away. Instead, I said, "Do you regret last night?" The question surprised both of us. Marco studied my face, searching for something. "No," he said quietly. "Do you?" I shook my head. "No." Another silence settled. "This one is heavier." "I meant what I said," he added. "About it just being one night." "I know," I said. "Me too." But my voice didn't sound certain. He noticed. His eyes dropped briefly to my mouth, then back up. That look, the one that said "I remember," sent a rush through me. "We should be careful," he said. "Yes," I agreed. Neither of us moved. He stepped closer first, not touching, just close enough that I could feel his warmth. "This doesn't change anything," he murmured. "I know." But when he leaned in, slower than the night before, I didn't stop him. The kiss this time was different, not exploratory, familiar. His lips lingered, soft and unhurried, like he wasn't trying to convince me of anything, just reminding me. I kissed him back, my hand lifting to his arm instinctively. For a moment, the city disappeared. Then a car passed. Someone laughed nearby. Reality returned. Marco pulled back first. His forehead rested briefly against mine. "This is how people get hurt," he said softly. "Yes," I replied. He stepped away. "We should stop," he added. I nodded. "Yes." Again. We walked off in opposite directions. This time I didn't look back. But all day I felt it, the shift. The rule was still there, but it was thinner now, less convincing. That night, lying alone in my apartment, I stared at the ceiling and admitted something I hadn't planned to. The night hadn't ended when I walked out his door. It had followed me into daylight, and I had a feeling, if I saw Marco again, it wouldn't feel like a coincidence anymore. After that second kiss, I knew something had changed. Not dramatically, not in a way I could point to and explain. Just a quiet shift, like a line had been crossed without either of us announcing it. I told myself I wouldn't reach out, that if Marco wanted to keep pretending this was nothing, I'd respect that. 2 days passed, then 3, and every day I found myself checking my phone for a name that didn't appear. I hated how quickly he had become a habit. On the 4th evening, my phone buzzed while I was making dinner. "Marco, are you free tonight?" I stared at the message longer than I needed to. I knew what free meant. I also knew I should say no. Me? For a bit. The reply came almost immediately. Come with me. I want to show you something. We met near the river, where the city softened. Streetlights reflected on the water, turning it into something calmer than the noise behind us. Marco stood there with his hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. Hey, he said. Hey. We started walking. No destination announced. Just movement. This feels like a bad idea, he said after a while. I glanced at him. Why? Because I've been thinking about you more than I should. The honesty surprised me. I've been trying not to, I admitted. He laughed quietly. How's that working out? Not great. We stopped near the railing. The night was cool. Quiet enough that our voices felt too loud. I don't usually do this, Marco said. Meet someone and let it linger. Neither do I. That night was supposed to be simple, he continued. But then you walked away like you actually meant goodbye. I swallowed. I did mean it. He looked at me then, really looked. That's what scared me. The words settled between us. You don't stay, he said softly. You leave before things get complicated. I didn't deny it. And I don't let people close unless I think they're staying, he added. Silence stretched. So what are we doing? I asked. Marco stepped closer. I don't know, he said. But I know pretending we don't feel this is worse. My heart started racing. He hesitated just like the first night, giving me space. Closed it. The kiss was slower this time, more deliberate. His hand slid up my arm, fingers curling lightly at my shoulder. Mine rested at his waist, steadying us both. When our lips parted, neither of us rushed back in. We stayed close, breathing the same air. This is dangerous, he murmured. Yes. I kissed him again anyway. That kiss wasn't about discovery. It was about permission, about admitting we wanted more than we were allowing ourselves to say. We ended up at his place without discussing it. Inside, the lights were low, the silence familiar now. We didn't rush. Clothes are discarded slowly, hands learning instead of taking. Every touch felt intentional. Every kiss deepened. When we finally lay together, it didn't feel like a repeat of the first night. Felt like a continuation. Afterward, we stayed awake longer than we should have, talking quietly, about fears, about patterns we hated admitting we repeated. I don't want to be temporary to you, Marco said. The words hit harder than any accusation. I don't want to hurt you, I replied. He turned toward me. Those aren't the same thing. I didn't have an answer. In the morning, I didn't leave immediately. We moved around the apartment together, careful but comfortable. Coffee, soft smiles, unfinished sentences. At the door, Marco touched my hand. This is starting to feel like something, he said. I nodded. Yes. And that scares me, he added. Me too. We stood there for a moment longer than necessary. Then I left. But this time it didn't feel like control. Felt like avoidance. As I walked away, one thought followed me relentlessly. We hadn't broken the rule by sleeping together again. We'd broken it the moment we admitted. We didn't want to be temporary. And I knew, the next time we saw each other, we wouldn't be able to pretend this was still just one night. The first thing I noticed was the distance. Not physical, emotional. It arrived quietly, like a habit you don't realize you've formed until it's already there. Marco still replied to my messages, still smiled when we ran into each other. But something had shifted. He was careful now, not cold, just measured. And I understood why. I was the one with an end date. A few days later, I ran into him outside his building. He was laughing with someone I didn't recognize. A man about his age, confident, familiar. They stood close, too close. Marco glanced up and saw me. The smile on his face changed, not disappeared, just adjusted. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. The other man nodded politely. I'm Daniel. Aiden, I said, shaking his hand. It was normal, friendly, and still something in my chest tightened. We were just heading out, Marco said. Work thing, right? I said. I won't keep you. I didn't mean for it to sound distant, but it did. Marco studied me for a second, like he wanted to say something, then didn't. They walked away together. I stayed where I was, watching until they disappeared around the corner. I hated the feeling that followed. Not jealousy exactly. Fear. Fear that I didn't have the right to feel anything at all. That night, Marco texted, "You okay?" I stared at the screen. "Yeah. Just tired." The lie tasted familiar. "Wanna come over?" he asked. I hesitated. This was the moment where things usually went wrong for me. Staying meant admitting I wanted more. Leaving meant proving I didn't. "Maybe another night," I replied. There was a pause before his response. "Okay." Just one word. But it carried weight. We didn't see each other for nearly a week. Not because we couldn't. Because we were both pretending distance would make this easier. Didn't. When we finally met again, it was by accident. Late evening. Same bar as the first night. Different energy. Marco was already there when I arrived. He looked up, surprised, and something like relief crossed his face before he masked it. We sat across from each other, too far apart. "You've been quiet," he said. "So have you," I replied. He nodded. "I'm trying not to push," he admitted. I laughed softly. "You're better at it than I am." Silence settled between us. Not awkward. Loaded. "I saw you with Daniel," I said finally. Marco didn't look defensive. "He's a coworker," he replied. "And a friend." I nodded. "I know. But," he asked gently. "But it reminded me that I don't get to ask questions," I said. "And that bothers me more than I expected." Marco leaned back slightly, studying me. "That's because this stopped being casual," he said. I didn't argue. "I can't keep guessing where I stand with you," he continued. "I won't compete with your leaving." The words stung because they were true. I reached for his hand across the table. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. "This is the part where I usually step back," I said quietly. "Before things get messy." Marco squeezed my fingers once, then let go. "Then maybe you should," he said, "because I don't want half of someone." The restraint in his voice hurt more than anger ever could. Outside, the night was cool and quiet. We stood facing each other under the streetlight. "This doesn't mean I don't feel anything," I said. "I know," Marco replied. "It just means you're scared." He wasn't wrong. I stepped closer anyway. "This isn't goodbye," I said. "It might be," he answered softly. The space between us felt unbearable. I leaned in, slowly, giving him time to stop me. He didn't. The kiss was gentle at first, careful, then deeper, like we were both trying to memorize it. His hands rested at my sides, firm but restrained. When we pulled apart, our foreheads touched. "I can't keep doing this if you're going to disappear," he said. "I won't," I promised too quickly. Marco smiled sadly. "That's what scares me." He stepped back. "I need you to decide," he said. "Not tonight, but soon." Then he turned and walked away. This time I watched him go. And for the first time since I arrived in the city, I felt the weight of what I was about to lose. Back in my apartment, I sat alone in the dark. My bags were still half-packed. My calendar is still marked with an end date. But none of that felt solid anymore. Because somewhere between rules and fear, I had fallen for someone who refused to be temporary, and I was running out of space to hide. After Marco walked away that night, I told myself this was necessary. Necessary distance. Necessary clarity. That's what people like me say when we're scared. The city felt colder in the days that followed. Not quieter, just less forgiving. I threw myself into work, stayed late, and avoided the places I knew I might see him. I even finished packing my bags, lining them up by the door like proof of discipline. This was what I was good at, leaving before things could ask too much of me. But absence didn't dull the feeling. It sharpened it. Every quiet moment pulled my thoughts back to Marco, to the way he looked at me when he asked me to decide, to the calm certainty in his voice when he said he wouldn't be temporary. I admired that about him. and I hated myself for not being able to match it. A week passed without a message. No checking in. No accidental meetings. The silence was deliberate. One evening, rain started falling hard, the kind that turns streets into mirrors. I walked without direction, just to escape my apartment. That's when I saw him. Marco stood under an awning outside a small restaurant, phone pressed to his ear. He looked tired, focused. He noticed me at the same time I noticed him. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he ended the call. "Hey," he said. "Hey." We stood there, rain falling just beyond the shelter, both unsure whether to step closer. "You look like you're avoiding something," he said. I smiled faintly. I was going to say the same. Silence settled again. Not hostile. Heavy. "I'm leaving soon," I said finally. He nodded once. "I know." I wanted to say it out loud. I added, "Before it becomes an excuse." That made him look at me differently. "Is that what this has been?" he asked. "An excuse." The question wasn't accusatory. It was tired. "I don't know how to stay," I admitted. "Every time something starts to matter, I convince myself distance is safer." Marco exhaled slowly. "And where does that leave us?" I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "It leaves us here," I said. "And that's the problem." Rain blew in, cold against my skin. Marco shifted instinctively closer, shielding me without thinking. The familiarity hurt. "I can't keep half loving you," he said quietly. "And I can't wait for you to decide if I'm worth changing your plans." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to lose you," I said. "That's not the same as choosing me," he replied. He was right. I reached for his hand, needing the contact. He let me hold it, but his fingers didn't curl back this time. "Tell me the truth," he said. "Not the careful one." My voice shook. "I'm afraid that if I stay, I'll fail. That I'll disappoint you." Marco's expression softened. "I'm not asking you to promise forever," he said. "I'm asking you not to run before we even try." The rain slowed, leaving the street quiet again. I leaned in slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. The kiss was gentle, almost restrained. Not desperate, not urgent, just honest. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. "This might be the last time," he whispered. "If you leave." The thought tightened my chest. "I know," I said. We stood there longer than necessary, hands still linked, neither willing to be the first to step back. Then Marco released my hand. "I need space," he said softly. "Not because I don't care, because I care too much." I nodded, even though it hurt. "I understand." He turned and walked into the rain. This time I didn't follow. Back in my apartment, the silence was unbearable. I looked at my packed bags, at the life I'd designed to keep myself untouched. For the first time, it felt small. I realized something then. I wasn't afraid of staying. I was afraid of being chosen and choosing back. And if I walked away now, I wouldn't just lose Marco. I'd prove that fear still decided everything for me. I sat on the edge of my bed, heart racing, knowing there was one decision left. Not tomorrow. Not eventually. Now. Because love doesn't wait for perfect timing. And I was running out of chances to be brave. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the city breathe outside my window, replaying every moment I'd almost lost him. Marco's words echoed in my head. "I won't be temporary. I need you to decide." For most of my life, I had believed leaving was strength. That distance made me untouchable. That if I never stayed long enough, I'd never have to fail anyone. But lying there, surrounded by packed bags and unfinished plans, I finally understood the truth. Leaving hadn't protected me. It had just kept me lonely. By morning, the decision was already made. I just hadn't admitted it out loud yet. I went to work early, not to focus, but to finish. I spoke to my manager, my voice steady despite the way my heart pounded. "I want to extend my contract," I said. "Long term." She looked surprised, then smiled. "That's good news," she replied. We were hoping you'd stay. Walking out of that office, something shifted. For the first time, choosing didn't feel like a loss. Felt like relief. I found Marco where I hoped I would. The same cafe where we'd accidentally run into each other days after our first night. He sat by the window, coffee untouched, staring outside like he was waiting for something he didn't expect to arrive. When he looked up and saw me, his expression froze. "Aiden," he said quietly. "Hey." There was a pause, a careful distance between us. "I won't stay long," I said. "I just needed to tell you something." He nodded. "Okay." I took a breath. "I'm not leaving." His eyes flickered. "I extended my contract," I continued. "Not because of work. Because of you." Silence fell between us, heavy and fragile. "You don't have to say anything," I added quickly. "I know I hurt you. I know I waited too long." Marco stood slowly. "You're right," he said. "You did." The honesty stung, but I didn't look away. "I was scared," I said, "of staying, of being chosen, of choosing back." He studied my face, searching for doubt. "And now?" he asked. I stepped closer. "Now I'm scared of losing you more." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he exhaled softly, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "I didn't need you to be fearless," he said. "I needed you to be real." I reached for his hand. This time he didn't hesitate. His fingers intertwined with mine, warm and sure. The kiss that followed wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was steady. A kiss that said, "I'm here. I'm not running." When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. "So," he murmured, a small smile forming, "does this mean the rule is officially broken?" I laughed quietly. It's been broken for a while. Life didn't turn perfect overnight. We had conversations, hard ones, about fear, about expectations, about how easy it would be to fall back into old patterns. But this time we stayed in the room together. Months passed. The city stopped feeling temporary. One evening, walking past the bar where we first met, Marco squeezed my hand. "Funny how one night changed everything," he said. I smiled. "We thought we were protecting ourselves," I replied, "but we were just afraid of wanting more." He leaned in, kissing me softly under the city lights. Not hiding, not rushing, just choosing. And for the first time in my life, staying didn't feel like giving something up. It felt like finally arriving.